All right, everyone. This is the last of the Patron Leader Institute training modules, Module 17, preparing for the next event. I'm Gil Fried, the crowd management doctor, and if you've stuck with the modules this long, thank you so much, and I hope you've learned a lot. I hope you can internalize this. When an event ends, you cannot just celebrate. Yay, I'm done, I get to go home. You and others need to prepare for the next event. The best time to prepare for the future is immediately after an event. The reason being is that recollections are fresh in your mind. You know what worked, what didn't work. So key terms covered in this module include disillusionment. It's the loss and lingering trauma might exist after people's attention and focus have moved on to other objects. You know, you're so excited for the event and now it's over. Heroic period, where people go beyond the call of duty and physical limitations and try and save others. The altruistic acts of individuals can boost morale and you feel really good about it. You know, you have that strength. You can lift up a car from on top of somebody. That's part of that adrenaline rush. The next term is honeymoon period. For a short period of time after an incident, people get along better as a community. They try to heal and they work with one another and they're ready to talk with one another when otherwise they might not. And we've seen this after major incidents like 9/11. The next term is rebuilding. There's symbolic dates and times might be memorialized as a form of closure to help people rebuild and move forward. So let's look at the first element here, which is documentation. The goal of documentation is to learn how to properly document what happened so that you or someone else can refer back to the document when planning for a future event. This isn't documenting just incidents that occur. It's the good, the bad, the ugly. You want to be able to cover as much as possible the who, what, where, when, why, so when you're planning for the next event, it becomes a lot easier. It is important to have documents or photographs that you can refer to and it will help you remember rather than just trying to rely upon your memory, especially if someone has moved on, they're not doing this anymore. This will help with future planning, but also if there's any complaints or litigation, this kind of documentation is critical. One of the important things with the communication process is who should speak to the media. Only the person designated by the event or facility should be the one speaking to the media. Normally there's a media representative and that's the individual. If the media comes to you, the most important thing to say is, that's a great question. This is the individual that can answer that question for you. What you do not want to say is no comment. No comment, in fact, sounds worse and it's portrayed worse in the media than if you say, look, that's a great question. I am not the person that's tasked with answering these questions. You're going to have to talk to this individual or that individual. That's not going to be on the news. Also, if you're the designated individual who has to give a comment, it's just as easy for you to say, I do not know the answer. I'm going to look that up and I will comment upon it when I have more information to make sure I give you accurate information. That sounds a lot better than no comment, doesn't it? It buys you time and ability to actually look into what's going on. All right, the next phase of the end of event kind of analysis involves a meeting. There could actually be several meetings. The goal here is to learn how to effectively communicate the good and bad, I also like to throw in ugly as well, of an event or facility to share experiences and insight. You might have been at an event the entire time and might have missed a lot of things that others have seen. That's why it's so important to get other people in the room to have this debriefing. A meeting should be held after events to help identify problems and resolve issues. Items that should be covered in such a meeting could include what went right, what went wrong, plans for the future, maybe how to handle emergency situations. Sometimes there's conflict. I've seen instances in the past where there's a conflict between athletic trainers and emergency personnel. And the ambulance people wanted to treat one way, athletic trainers wanted to treat another way. That actually led to a fist fight on the field. Meetings can also be helpful in helping to make patron leaders feel better after a major incident. How do you guys feel? Let's talk about it. The psychological process after an emergency can be viewed in 5 phases. One is the initial impact. That's probably going to be involving shock and disbelief. I can't believe what happened. Then there's the heroic period, where people go beyond the call of duty and physical limitations to try and save others. The altruistic acts of individuals can boost morale across an entire organization. You have the honeymoon period. For a short period of time after an incident, people get along better as a community, tries to heal, and they talk about it, and they want to work together. Disillusionment. Loss and lingering trauma might exist after people's attention and focus have moved on to other issues. It's no longer in the headlines and they're feeling bad. Rebuilding. That's a symbolic. Dates and times might be memorialized as a form of closure to help people rebuild and move on. Maybe there's plans to prevent future similar tragedies and they need to be developed, and some will call for revenge or I want a pound of flesh for this stuff like this. No. Let's have a meeting, let's discuss it, and we can discuss it and hopefully reach some conclusions or some mutual feelings. The next area looks at reassessing the good and the bad. The goal here is to measure whether the safety goals and objectives were met and how to correct any potential problems. This was covered in the risk management area when we were looking at the ACT approach, where before an event or season or whatever, you looked at the reflect phase where you're trying to look at what you're trying to do. This is part of that as well. So the goal is for every event or facility to have a safe event. Straightforward. You have an integral role in that process by trying to provide the highest level of protection for others and yourself. So that's what you're always trying to do here, is to look at what is our goal. Our goal is safety. And so after an event, can you take a look at what actually happened and whether or not you made the event as safe as possible? Were people in their assigned positions? Did people take the breaks that they needed to take? Was there enough time to go and take an actual break? Was there enough personnel? Are the people properly trained? If you're working at an event and you've like, hey, look at, you know what? I'm given a Nextel device or whatever the communication device is, and I don't get reception. If you're saying, hey, look at, I'm working at the event, and you know what, during the event, I'm going like this, trying to get reception, and I don't seem to be able to get reception. Communicate that to other people. Maybe there's a solution. Maybe pieces of equipment are not working for a given reason. Maybe there's no first aid kit available. Maybe the AED was removed and not replaced. Whatever it is, this is the time to communicate those concerns or possible issues to others. Also, and this is really, really critical, if you see someone is doing something right, please mention that to others, especially supervisors. Thank people. For example, if you see someone is going beyond the call to help break up potential conflict between people and that they're monitoring their areas, if you see what's going on, come over and ask, hey, do you need any help? You can do that during a game, during a concert, whatever it is. But it's just as important after an event to say, look at, I saw what you did. I think you did a great job. You separated the parties. You resolved the dispute. I didn't see anything further on going on between the parties. Thank you. You did your job. Saying thank you is so critical. Recognizing excellence is so critical. Recognizing and learning from other people and taking those best practices, that's great. And this all comes about with hopefully documenting things, hopefully having a meeting, and hopefully knowing what the phases are of how people respond after an incident, tragedy, and that you can move forward as an organization because you have a mutual understanding now of each other because you've all survived or reflect possibly. It's not necessarily survival if it's just exiting an event, but you can reflect on the event of what you were able to accomplish and get done. So I want to end by highlighting the fact that sometimes there are going to be terrorist-related events, and that could lead to significant trauma. Also, you might have trauma yourself from being around a situation where a patron might have died, or there was serious traumatic injury, or whatever else situation is. It's okay to ask time for yourself to be able to heal. As we've talked about different equipment that is critical for safety of others, you are a critical piece of that equipment. If your head is not in the game because of everything, now's the time to be able to convey that. So after an event, everything's over, the next day maybe, talk to the supervisor if you're having issues. If something's going on with you because of what happened, you have to be able to feel free to raise that concern and discuss it with others. Hopefully, you won't have to deal with that, but unfortunately, the reality is that some of us are going to have to face that, and it's how we deal with it afterwards, which dictates how we respond going forward. And if you need time off, if you need therapy, if you need to talk to individuals, don't hesitate to ask for that, because that will help you hopefully resolve any potential problems that you might have or issues you might be feeling, and get to a better spot where you could do your job more effectively based upon what you've learned. That's it. Have a great rest of the day, and be safe out there. Take care. Bye.